Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our virtual March open house today. Today, we're going to be hearing a little bit about the psychology program here at Carleton. So before we jump in, I will just ask that if you have any questions throughout the session, please let us know. I would encourage you to use the Q&A feature of AirMeet to ask your questions. It's a little easier for us to answer them this way. But if you have any questions at all, we're happy to take them. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. So I'll pass things over to Dr. Sorley and I'll let you get started. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks very much, Millie. And thanks to all of you for joining us and taking a little bit of time out of a Saturday morning to be with us. My name is Matthew Sorley, and I'm an instructor with the Department of Psychology. And I teach courses such as Introduction to Psychology. So I work with a lot of first-year students. And I also teach a third-year course called Sport and Performance Psychology. And I'm a little bit different in terms of many of the faculty at Carleton, in that I did my undergrad and graduate work at Carleton in the psych department. So I have a really good understanding of what it's like to be you right now. And right now, you're doing something really positive. You're trying to gather all kinds of different information, not just about psychology and about whether or not you're interested in declaring psychology as a major or a minor or something else, but you're also learning a little bit about the university. And so I see my role today as to try to help you to make an informed decision, because I think everybody wins if you end up in the right spot, whether it's at Carleton as a psych major, or whether it's as a major in another area, or whether it's not at Carleton at all, or whether it's not even going to university at all. It's going to do something else. I just want to make sure that you are really approaching this from, you're really trying to find the best fit. All right, so what I'm going to do today is, in our brief time together, I'm going to really take you on a little bit of a tour of the discipline and a little bit about the department, and then also talk a little bit about what a psych program looks like. So what is first year going to be like, what second year, third year, etc., just so that you have a flavor, a bit of a taste of what's going on, and hopefully you will find that useful. And then at the end, I'll be able to jump in and try to help out with any questions that our fine Carleton staff haven't been able to answer. So I'd like to start off really thinking about why people are interested in psychology in the first place. And there are so many different reasons why. Let's take a look at this comic. When I grew up, I'd like to study about people. People interest me. I'd like to go to some big university and study all about people. Oh, I see. You want to learn about people so that with your knowledge, you'll be equipped to help them. Nah, I'm just nosy. There's so many reasons why people are interested in psychology. It very much resonates with us. And I think part of that is because it touches on our thoughts and our feelings and behaviors. And guess what? As human beings, these tend to come up from time to time, right? If they come up in our personal life, they're important in the workplace. They're important as we're acquiring and refining all kinds of different skills. They're simply very, very important and really are reflective of what it means to be human. And sometimes people are interested in psychology because they just have an academic interest. They're interested in understanding more about the human organism and the mind. Other times they're interested in trying to help people. So they might be going off in more of an applied career path. At other times, it's somewhere in between those two. So at Carleton, we have a number of different areas of research that are in focus. And so I want to take you on a tour of each of these different areas and give you some samples of the key questions that are in focus. Now, good science is about good questions. And I think that's a useful starting point for us. So first off, one area of research that's very popular is known as developmental psychology. And it likely wouldn't surprise you to know that the psychology of a 5-year-old is different from a 15-year-old or a 25-year-old or a 45-year-old or a 95-year-old. That sounds pretty obvious. And developmental psychologists are interested in how we change across the lifespan. So how do we change physically? How do we change cognitively, just in terms of how we acquire and use information and how we learn? It's a study of how our We change in social ways and how our relationships change, how our emotions change. This area used to be known as child psychology, but then it ultimately was realized, oh yes, we continue to change across that lifespan. Kind of an important realization, isn't it? One of our prominent developmental psychologists, his name is Rob Copeland, and he is interested in shyness and social anxiety. And so he works with a number of people. He works with teachers, he works with parents, and trying to figure out what can we do to help shy kids to ultimately thrive in a variety of different settings. A number of our other developmental psychologists are interested in extracurricular participation. So, what are the benefits for youth of joining a sports team, for example? Right. Well, you learn all sorts of different things. There's all kinds of socialization that goes on. There's all kinds of information in terms of our cognitive development, our relationships. We're learning about fair play, and all of these elements really very much contribute to our developing in a positive way. We also have a number of developmental psychologists who are interested in transitions, and specifically the transition from high school to university. Whenever I speak of a transition, you're talking about one phase of life ending and another phase of life beginning. And certainly one of the more challenging transitions that people can face is going from high school to university. And so our developmental psychologists are interested in studying what can we do to try to smooth that transition, to try to set people up for success. Another area that is very popular at Carleton is the forensic psychology area. And when I use the term forensic, quite often people will be thinking about all sorts of true crime dramas and various documentaries that they've seen on Netflix and Criminal Minds and all these very popular TV shows over the years. Forensic psychology is very much focused on using the science of psychology and applying it to the legal system. And what you see here on this slide are a number of our forensic psychologists. Adele Forth is one of our forensic psychologists, and she's interested in psychopathy. She studies psychopaths, and particularly the assessment of psychopathy. Craig Bennell is interested in criminal profiling. In many of the dramas that we've all seen, there's been some horrific crime, and you've got this physical evidence, and you bring in the profiler or the profilers, and they're able to kind of take a look at the elements of the crime and use their knowledge of behavioral science and psychology to try to develop a profile of the perpetrator. Okay, well, he's interested in whether or not profiling actually works. What are some of the positives? What are some of the drawbacks? What can we do to try and enhance the process? And that's Dr. Craig Bennell, our resident interested in criminal profiling. Joanna Pizzullo, another one of our forensic psychologists, he's interested in the reliability of eyewitness testimony. We rely very heavily on eyewitnesses. I mean, if we think about the scene in the courtroom, very dramatic scene, and you have an eyewitness pointing at the accused and saying, "I saw them do it. I saw them at the scene of the crime." We rely very much on eyewitnesses. Okay, but should we? How reliable is eyewitness testimony? Well, our study of the human mind indicates rather clearly that memory can be manipulated, it can be reconstructed, it can be shaped in a variety of different ways. And so Joanna Pizzullo, for example, one of our forensic psychologists, and she's interested in working with law enforcement to try to help them to increase the reliability of eyewitness testimony, particularly when it comes to child eyewitnesses. Ralph Sarin, another one of our forensic psychologists, he's interested in parole decision making. Parole boards have really an awesome responsibility. They have to make a determination as to whether or not an individual who's been incarcerated is ready to rejoin society, either fully or under supervision. And you want to get those decisions right. I mean, the stakes can be very high. So they use the science of psychology to try to enhance the quality of the decision making, so that you are really achieving accurate estimates of recidivism. Like, is the individual actually going to go out and reoffend? That obviously should be an important consideration, shouldn't it? Another area in focus at Carleton in the psych department is cognitive psychology. Whenever I use the term cognitive, really talking about how we use the mind to acquire knowledge, to use knowledge. How do we learn? How do we perceive the world around us? How do we remember? How do we forget? How do we pay attention to the information that is around us? And how do we selectively attend so that we are attending to some elements of what's going on around us while ignoring others? It's the study of speech and language and so many other different mental processes. A number of our developmental psychologists are interested in a number of academic skills, things like reading and arithmetic. So what can parents, what can teachers do to try to assist young people in acquiring and refining these skills? There can be a fair amount of anxiety when it comes to learning math, for example. Okay, well, what are some of the techniques that can be used that really try to maximize our capacities and help us to try to realize our potential? We also have a number of cognitive psychologists who are interested in transportation and particularly the safety of our transportation systems. And one of the more popular spots on the Carleton Psychology Tour is the flight simulator, which is part of the Advanced Cognitive Engineering Lab, or the ACE Lab, which is directed by Dr. Chris Herdman. And so in the flight simulator, he's quite interested in really studying how the human mind uses information in those settings. I mean, think about a cockpit of an airplane, right? There's all kinds of information that's coming at you. You have dials, you have buzzers, you have flashing lights, you have what you are seeing visually through the window. You have people talking with you. You have people communicating through a headset. You have all of these kinds of things. Well, you want to make sure that you are able to process that information and to attend to the important pieces when necessary, right? So how do you arrange that information? How do you arrange those different readouts? How light should the cockpit be? How dark should it be? Right? What are some of the basic human tendencies that are used when processing that type of visual information and auditory information and all that good stuff? Okay? So that's what goes on in the ACE Lab, very popular spot. Another area is known as health psychology. It's certainly an area that has attracted a lot more attention recently. I probably don't have to tell you why. Health psychology really trying to help us to understand how we cope with stress, how we deal with illness, how we achieve positive states of well-being. And one of the really interesting places or labs anyway, within our department is the happiness lab. A lot of psychology's history was focused on really clinical psychology and psychological disorders and treatment options, etc. But in recent years, there's been a little more of a focus in an area called positive psychology, trying to understand things like happiness and creativity and optimism and resilience. And what can we try to do to foster some of these positive elements of our humanity? And the Happiness Lab, well, they're interested in studying happiness. They're interested in really understanding the differences between people who are happy and people who aren't. So what are the happy people doing? What are they saying? What are they saying to themselves, right? There's their self-talk, for example. What are their relationships like? What can we learn from them? And one of our health psychologists, John Zelensky, is also quite interested in our relationships with nature. And he's found that we're we're really not meant to be spending all of our days in an office or surrounded by concrete. It's good for our mood. It's good for our psychology. It's good for our psychological and physical health to be in nature. And so he's conducted a number of pretty classic studies illustrating those principles. One of the courses that I teach is very much tilted in the health direction. I mentioned that I teach a course called Sport and Performance Psychology, and we're interested in the psychological conditions that are associated with performance excellence. So really trying to take a look at high performers across a number of different areas. So certainly high performing athletes, but also musicians and dancers and stand-up comedians and so on and so forth, thinking about what we can do to structure their environment in a way that really allows their natural abilities to thrive. And so we talk about confidence, and confidence being a skill that needs to be trained, and you have to keep working at your confidence much like you would any other kind of skill. We talk about goal setting and motivation. We talk about the use of imagery. We talk about recovery from injury. We talk about team dynamics and leadership and a variety of other elements, very much focused on the health area. Another area that's well represented at Carleton is social psychology. And students seem to love this area in part because it's the study of how we come to influence other people, but also how they influence us. We're social animals. We need other people. And an absence of positive relationships in our lives can have all kinds of negative psychological and physical consequences. Okay, so if we're social animals, what can we learn about the influence that we have on others and that they have on us? Dr. Cheryl Harrison-Chuck is interested in relationships. So, for example, dating relationships, intimate relationships. And she's interested in studying boredom. You start a relationship, there can be this big excitement. You can hardly wait to be around the person all the time, and everything that they do is just so incredibly adorable. You love everything about them. Then, as time goes along, you start noticing a few things that maybe you didn't notice before, and you start, maybe getting a little bit of tired of the same old routine. Well, Cheryl is interested in studying boredom and what can you do to try to relieve boredom in close relationships. And so she studies a little bit in the area of novelty and trying to introduce novelty into the relationship. Naturally, she's been very curious on how COVID has influenced our relationships. I mean, think about the last couple of years and many individuals really in close quarters all the time, right? How can I love you if you won't go away? Well, okay, being in close quarters with someone all the time, that has an influence on the nature of the relationship. And she's been trying to study some of those elements. Another area of psychology is personality psychology. Very much interested in studying our characteristics, studying our traits. So things like introversion and extroversion and conscientiousness and how open we are to experience and a variety of other kinds of traits. So if I know a little bit about you, if I know a little bit about your characteristics, is that going to help me, for example, as an employer to try to determine whether or not you're going to be successful in a particular occupation? Right? One of our personality psychologists, Tim Pitchell, and he's interested in studying procrastination. We all procrastinate. You procrastinate, I procrastinate. It really is something that we all do. And we often will tell ourselves, you know what? I don't feel like doing it right now, but I'll wait till later. Later, I'm going to be more motivated. I need the pressure of a deadline, right? So I'm going to put it off and I'm going to feel like it another time. Well, guess what? We so often don't feel like doing it another time, and then we wait to the last minute, and then we rush, and then the quality of our work ultimately suffers. Well, Tim is interested in trying to figure out, all right, in an academic setting, what can we do to try to reduce procrastination and really set people up for success? And so one of the things that has been noted is that we tend to procrastinate a little bit more when it comes to written work as opposed to studying for a test or reviewing our notes. Okay? His favorite saying is just get started, right? Just if we jump into a task, we take that first step, then we can start building a little bit of momentum. And another area that is well represented at Carleton is organizational psychology. Another area that certainly has been gaining in popularity and curiosity, especially coming out of the pandemic. And so, organizational psychologists, they study individuals and groups in workplace settings. And here's Janet Mantler, one of our org psych folks, and the whole group of researchers. They're interested in really trying to promote health and what the health and well-being of employees. It's really expensive to try to attract talent. It's difficult to try to onboard talent, to try to train them in the ways and the roles and the norms and the procedures of an organization. It's difficult to keep them there, especially these days. Well, all right. One of the ways in which you can really emphasize retention is to promote the health and well-being of your people. Funny, people like organizations to pay attention to their health and well-being. Who knew, right? Yeah, it's just that important. And so our organizational psychologists are able to work with organizations to try to figure out, okay, how do you do that? What are the evidence-based ways that organizations can do that? But also, how can we help students manage the transition from school to the workplace? Certainly in a degree program, you're acquiring all kinds of different skills that set you up for success in the workplace. But there are still all kinds of different differences between, there are all sorts of differences between the two different environments. It's another transition. So high school to university, but then university to something else, and typically the workforce, right? All right, well, how do we manage that transition? Okay. Next up, what do we know about work-life balance? And that has certainly become even more in focus these days, hasn't it? Trying to figure out, all right, where does work stop and the other elements of my life begin? That's become really more difficult as so many people have been working at home. So your workplace is also your home space, and these two worlds very much colliding. And so organizations are certainly well advised to pay attention to that work-life balance. All right, so those are the different areas of psychology. And students typically find that there's one area that interests them more than the others. And over time, not in first year, but over time, they typically will settle in one of those areas, and a little more of their courses will be focused in one of those areas compared to others. Now, I want to take you through a number of different program elements, and I think that might address some of the questions that you have in terms of what does each year look like? What are some of the program options? So first off, we offer a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Arts honors. It used to be known as the 3-year and the 4-year program, but it took the time to completion of completing the old 4-year degree program is a little bit more than 4 years typically. So we've really dropped to thinking of it as 3 years and 4 years. The honors program has those extra credits. You are able to go into the topics with a little bit more depth. And typically, if you're going on to grad school, you want, or any kind of applied program after your undergrad, you're going to want to be in an honors program. We also have a BSc honors program, Bachelor of Science. Now, one of the most popular questions that I get, what's the difference between a BA honors and a BSc honors? The psych courses that you take are exactly the same, completely the same, right? No difference. What will be different are the non-psychology courses. So in the BSc, there are more courses in the physical sciences that you'll be taking. So things like biology and chemistry and neuroscience and different math and stats courses, et cetera, right? So there are fewer electives in our BSc, but there's a little more of a focus on the physical sciences. The BA, a little more focused on the social sciences, and you have a little more room to move in terms of elective type courses. Now, in terms of what does this mean for future careers? Well, the overwhelming majority of our students actually are in the BA honors program, and that is fine. Whether you're just deciding that you're going to have an undergraduate degree in psychology and that's it, great. Or if you're going on to a master's in counseling or a clinical psychology program, or you're off to teachers college, or whatever it is you're going to be doing, BA honors tends to be pretty close to one-stop shopping. The BSc can have some advantages for those who are really passionate about physical sciences. And so if you're interested in going out to med school, for example, the BSc tends to be the more appropriate option. You can also declare what's known as a combined honors degree. And that means that you don't just have one major, you have two majors. This used to be known as taking a double major, right? So say you can't decide between psychology and sociology. All right, fair enough. Well, then you might decide you're going to be in the combined honors program, majoring in psychology and sociology. Right? And some students decide that they really have these two areas that they want to really best represent their program. Other students decide to declare a minor. And so you're not taking as many credits as you would for a major, but you are still having this designation on your degree. So it would say, for example, that you're majoring in psychology, minoring in legal studies, for example, right? And so that then really the dominant focus of your program would be in psych, but there'd be a number of required courses that you'd be taking in this other discipline, and enough of those courses so that it's actually represented even physically on your sheet of paper, on your degree at the end of your program. Now, one thing that we're very proud of at Carleton Psychology are concentrations. And so you can actually declare a concentration in any one of the research areas that I just mentioned. So for example, forensic psychology. So this means that on your degree, it would say BA honors in psychology, concentration in forensic psychology. And so some students, they want their program to be tilted really very much towards one area of the discipline, and they want that represented on their degree. Taking a concentration, you don't have to do it. You can declare it right out of when you're applying to Carleton, so right out of high school. You can declare it in first year, second year, third year. It doesn't matter. You can declare it at any point. There are a number of required courses in each of those areas that you'd be taking. So in forensic, you'd be taking forensic psychology at the second year level. You'd be taking criminal behavior at third year, and a variety of other forensic themed courses. And the same would apply for developmental psychology, social psychology, etc. You don't have to declare it, but a lot of students choose to do so. They like having that on their degree. Another interesting little and fairly new program option for us is our stream in mental health. And this provides students with an option to take a number of mental health focused courses that are really open to only the students who are in this stream. And some of them have a real applied angle. So there are a number of different ways that you would be gaining experience on and off campus related to mental health. It's a competitive program. It's the high GPA to get in, and it would be something that you typically would declare a little bit later on in your program. Okay, you typically wouldn't be applying for that first year. You'd be declaring that a little bit later on in your program. Okay. All right, so let me take you on the tour of what first year is like, second year, third year, fourth year. I'll use the honors program as sort of the typical example, although understanding that some students might choose to just complete the BA, not the BA honors. A lot of the features are going to be the same. Okay. So in first year, you take intro psych, and just already in the time we've spent together, you already realize that psychology is a very broad discipline. There are a lot of different areas, a lot of different topics in focus, and intro psych is really a tour of those different areas. And that really helps you to make some decisions on the courses that you want to take in second year. I should mention that we typically will have intro psych available in face-to-face sections, but there typically are also some online sections as well. So you get to usually choose the format that matches your lifestyle, how you learn, etc. I want to draw your attention also to first year seminars. These aren't exclusive to psychology, but they're part of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And a first year seminar is a class that is capped at 30 students, and you get to know the professor, you get to work closely with text, you get to be working with your colleagues, you get to be conducting presentations, all kinds of things that are often difficult to do in first year, because first year classes can often be rather large. So we have a number of psychology themed first year seminars. So there's one that I typically co-teach called the Psychology of Success, which really focuses on the skills that we're looking for people to learn across their degree program, and we get to really jump into those skills nice and early. But there are some forensic themed courses, there's some health psychology themed courses, but there are also first year seminars related to sociology and a wide range of other disciplines. It's not so much the topic that matters in a first year seminar, it's really more about the skills that you're working on. So I do encourage you to learn about first year seminars. I know that there's something that Carleton is very proud of. Then you head off to second year. And if you're a psych major, if you're a psych minor, you're going to be taking research methods and stats, right? So research methods is one course, psychological research methods, and then statistics is a second course. Now, I know when I say that, a number of you are making a face right now. You're like, oh, geez, I thought if I took psych, I didn't have to do that. Well, psychology, it's a scientific discipline. And as such, when we're talking about designing studies and gathering data, we have to analyze that data. And that means research methods and stats, right? But I should mention that the individuals who teach these courses, they're aware of the anxiety that so many students have around math, right? And so they're not going to be silly enough to have a midterm that's worth 50% of your grade and a final that's worth 50%. No, you're going to be doing stats throughout the term, and there are going to be a lot of smaller stakes type assignments and lots of support along the way. It's an essential part of a psych program, but again, there's lots of people to help you through. You'll also be taking a number of what we call branching courses in the different areas that I was talking about. So social psychology, forensic psychology, and more. Then it's off to third year. And by this time, you have a pretty good handle on what you like and what you don't like. Again, you don't have to make these decisions in first year. You can even change your mind along the way. It's pretty easy to do that. And so in third year, you'll be taking courses and you'll have a decent menu of choices. Clinical psych, positive psychology, close relationships in the social area, sport and performance in the health area, merging adulthood in the developmental area, sex offenders in the forensic area, and so many other course possibilities as well. So now you're really getting knee deep into some of these different content areas. In the honors program, you'll also be taking a full year course called Design and Analysis that just really builds on what you learned in research methods and stats in second year. Also in the honors program, you have the possibility of taking a course called the Honors Seminar. And the Honors Seminar is a small class that's capped at a little over 20 students. And in that class, you're going to be really learning how to develop your own piece of research scholarship, so your own study. By fourth year, it's time to cap your undergraduate career off in style and really bring all the skills that you've been acquiring and refining across the degree to bear on a particular project. And so some students will conduct a thesis, so they become a member of a faculty member's lab, and they design a study. So they're proposing an hypothesis, they're designing a study, they're gathering data, they're analyzing that data, and they're writing it up into a beautiful document known as a thesis. Some students decide, nope, they're not so much interested in conducting research. They will opt for a class that's called the Honors Project. And here you are going to focus on an area of psychology and a topic within that area for the whole year. And so all of your assignments in that class are based on your chosen interests. So say it's psychopaths. Well, all right, There'll be presentations that you'll be conducting around psychopathy. You'll be developing short papers and longer papers and posters and all kinds of other things related to your chosen area. Really, really neat class. And at the end of the class, you're the expert in for that class in that chosen area. All right, another thing that we added a number of years ago that we're really happy about is the Psychology Undergraduate Research Event, also known as PURE. And for PURE, this is a poster event, right? And all our students who are conducting a thesis or in the project will develop a poster that's reflective of what they've been doing over the previous year, right? In the thesis or the project. And then we all get together in this really big room and we all walk around, we mill about, and we talk about what you've been up to. So there are students there, there's faculty, there's members of the university community who are there. And it's a really happy event in a lot of ways. People are usually smiling a lot during this event. It's kind of exciting to learn more about your interests. And oh yes, it's catered. Let's not forget about that. You want people to come to something? Bring food. All right, now, your undergrad degree program, it certainly is about taking classes. That is a big part of it. But there are also so many opportunities to learn outside of the classroom. There's volunteering. There are all kinds of different events on campus and initiatives and committees and societies that you can be a part of that really help you to work on a wide range of different skills and really lead to making the most of your program. Well, in Psych, we have a co-op option. And for co-op, you can add a year onto your degree program. And this is for BA honors students. You can add a year onto your degree program and you're working full time, right? So you have a placement and you're making a little bit of money, but more importantly than that, or I shouldn't say more importantly, but certainly equally important, you are engaging in really deep career exploration. You're networking. You're trying to figure out if this sort of area and this type of work and those sorts of environments are for you. You're test driving elements of certain occupational settings. That has a lot of value. And in some cases, our co-op students will obtain employment from their placement employers after graduation, right? That's not an unusual thing. We also have a practicum, and with the practicum, it is a course. It's a single-term course, and you are volunteering at an agency and earning course credit for doing so. And so here's a quote from one of our practicum students. She said that the practicum provided some exposure into the mental health field and solidified that this is the right path for me. Now, she really test drove the mental health field, and she decided, yep, this is for me. Some students, though, will do a co-op or do a practicum, and they'll decide afterwards, you know what, this isn't for me, right? I thought it was, but it's not. That can happen with these sorts of experiences, but also by taking your courses, right? It's not unusual for students to change their mind. It's not unusual for students to change their major. I changed my major 4 times, right? And I think my career path was anything but linear. It was very much all over the place. And I think that is becoming a lot more common. So don't feel as you're trying to make a decision on what you want to do, don't feel as though, okay, I'm locked into that for the rest of my life. I have no room to move. I have all the pressure of the world on me right now. And oh yes, everyone else knows what they're going to do except me. I talk with a lot of students. I talk with thousands of students. And I can tell you that if you believe that everyone else has it figured out except you, that's just not true. You'll find that first year is very much a year of exploration. You're trying on different things. You have ideas of what a discipline is and what's possible in those areas. And then you start taking the courses. You start talking with faculty. You're talking with colleagues. You're using university support services, such as career services and other elements. And you're having experiences outside the classroom. You're volunteering. You're working part-time. So many different ways that you can help yourself to kind of figure out what you want to do. The key is to not be passive with your program, to kind of sit back and expect that people are going to come to you with all of this. You have to put yourself out there a little bit. And if you do, I think you're going to be really glad that you did. There's also lots of support that's available too. All right, so in terms of gaining experience, whether it's via co-op or practicum, we have partnerships with a number of different organizations. And so you take a look just at the list here. We've got the Ottawa Hospital, Career Services on campus, Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, the RCMP, Vista Center Brain Injury Services, Correctional Services Canada. There are so many others, Portia Learning Center, so many different possibilities there. And these are relationships that we currently have. It's one of the benefits of being in the capital, is that you have a lot of organizations, and a lot of them are looking for people. They're looking for students to come in and to be able to learn, but also to help fill a need. Right? And so I think that's definitely worth mentioning. Now, that's a lot of information, And so one of the things I recommend that you do at some point, if you want to learn more, is head to our website, at carleton.ca/psychology. There you're going to find all kinds of different pieces of information. So for example, there's a tab to research. And so if you click on that, it will take you to links for each of the different research areas. And when you click on those, you get to learn about what faculty are actually up to. So you'll see faculty bios and information about some of the questions that they're interested in. So if you're into developmental psychology and you're thinking about Carleton, okay, why not take a look at the research tab and learn what our developmental psychologists are doing? I gave you a taste of that, but there's a lot more available for you on the website. There's also a tab to undergraduate studies, and it really details what a sample program layout looks like. So in more detail, what do you take in first year, second year, third year, etc. There's more information on the concentrations and co-op and the practicum. There's more information about you're trying to make some choices in terms of different programs. There's information on adding a minor and combined honors, all of that kind of stuff. So I do encourage you to take a look at that if the mood strikes. Any questions that you have, you can also email our undergraduate office. So in our undergraduate office, we have an advisor, and this is someone who really helps students to navigate their way through their program. And so I always tell all my first year students, try to head for academic advising at least once a year, at least before you're making your registration decisions, because that way the advisor can help just to make sure that you know what you're up to, you know what you're doing, that you're taking the right courses, you're making some good decisions, that you're getting the supports that you need. And so it's a good idea to get academic advising. And that's not just true for psych, that's true for any kind of discipline. I like to promote our advising because our advisor, her name's Caitlin, and she's awesome. She's super friendly, and she really likes students. And that's, well, that's kind of essential in that sort of role, isn't it? Okay. We also have a Twitter feed, which keeps you up to date on the latest comings and goings and really what's being promoted. And then also there's an Instagram page as well. And then that really gives you an idea of really visually, in some ways, what's happening. And there are a fair representation of our faculty and our students on that particular site. Okay. So again, an awful lot of information for you. But I hope that you decide to learn a little bit more, whether it's about psychology or any one of the other disciplines. Now, I was told that I was supposed to be 45 minutes, and I was 43.5 minutes, and so that's good. We're pretty much right on time, right where we're supposed to be. And so, just as I jump into the chat, just to see if there are any questions that have come up. So is psychology a good pre-med? Yeah, certainly. More students who are interested in med school will go the BSc route as opposed to the BA route. You'll see some students in med will do, for example, a major in psychology, a minor in neuroscience, or the other way around. Like there are all kinds of different ways. There are some who will decide they're going to be a biology major or a chem major. So many possibilities in terms of med school. There's also what's known as a student, I keep forgetting the name of it. It's the it's the Science Student Success Center. Yay, ding, ding for me, I got it. And they're really good in trying to help students to navigate their way towards a med school path. And so they're really good in helping students to know, all right, what are the requirements? What are the things that you should be doing throughout your undergraduate program to realize that goal? And so if you do end up at Carleton and you decide that you're interested in med school, a really good idea to talk to the Science Student Success Center. Yeah. Okay. So question, psychology good pre-med for a future neurosurgeon? Yeah, I think if someone is interested in becoming a neurosurgeon, certainly neuroscience would likely be a good choice, and really any of the biology, for example, would likely be another a good choice. Certainly not a bad idea to talk with those areas as well. So at events like these, talk with the person from neuroscience, talk with the person from bio, for example, and other areas too, right? And don't just rely on me for that information. You want to get as much information as you can. Okay. Also, we have, can you have both a minor and a concentration? Yeah, so you can be a student who is majoring in psychology, minoring in law with a concentration in forensic. Yep, you can do that. Taking a concentration such as cognitive psychology, am I still going to take courses that are part of other concentrations such as health psychology? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the courses aren't exclusive to the concentrations. And so if you want to take sport and performance psychology, that's one of my classes. It shows you have taste. Good for you. But you can certainly take it even if you're not in the health psychology concentration. Oh yeah. The concentrations in some ways are just a bit of a roadmap. It draws your attention to the courses that you want to take if you're interested in that particular area, but other students can take those courses as well. The other question that Kirsten had, and am I able to change concentrations throughout? Absolutely. Yeah, you can decide out of high school you're applying into forensic, and then you take forensic psychology and you decide, nope, not for me. I'm more interested in social. Okay, you can change your concentration to social. And then you just want to make sure that there are requirements for each of these concentrations. So you might have to go back and take social psychology and some other classes. But yes, you can change your concentration. What would be a good elective for a law major? Well, certainly you have to take intro psych to get into forensic psychology in second year. So a law major, forensic psychology at the second year level is absolutely, that's sort of the gateway course for forensics, but you have to take intro psych in first year. That's not the Psych 1001, Psych 1002, and then Psych 2400 at the second year level. And then you might decide you want to take more forensic courses, themed courses like crime behavior, sex offenders, and so on and so forth at the third and fourth year level. Okay. Right. Good. Let's see if I can see any other questions. Not seeing any other questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Sorley. This was really, really helpful. Definitely some fantastic information. I did see one last question about tuition amounts in the chat. The best place to go for that's going to be our student accounts department. They have a fantastic website, but I don't believe they've finalized tuition amounts for the upcoming school year just yet. So definitely keep an eye on their website for any updates there. So that's, I think, it for the psychology session, but you might be able to catch up with Matt again at the booth for psychology. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to reach out to anyone sitting at our booths. And I would encourage everyone to go check out some of the academic services that were highlighted during this presentation. And thank you again so much for coming and joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.